I'm going to briefly discuss Windows printing. So basically, you can use a Windows server as a print server, so that you can share printers centrally. This is kind of important because you don't want users having to install printers individually. It's good if they're available over the network, obviously. So Windows Server 2012 gives you some tools to do this. So there's some components in sharing a printer. You have the print device, which is the physical device. There's two basic types. You can have a local print device or a network print device. Printer is the icon in the printers folder that represents a print device. And the print server would be a Windows computer that's sharing a printer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a server. You could also do this from a workstation. Workstations can also share printers. But in an enterprise environment, we probably would want to use a Windows 2012 or better server to do this. The print queue is the location for print jobs when they're waiting for printing. So on a print server, you can look at the print queue to see the jobs that are waiting to be printed on a physical printer. So in 2012 R2, here are some functions that you have available. You have access control, which controls who can print to a printer and who can manage print jobs on those printers. The pooling, printer pooling, which is a single printer represents two or more print devices. Printer priority, two or more printers can represent a single print device. Print job management, which allows you to pause, cancel, restart, reorder, and change preferences on print jobs. Availability control, which is configuring print servers so that the print jobs are accepted only during certain hours, for example. Printer pooling is a single printer is defined on the print server. So the printer is connected to two or more print devices on separate ports, and print jobs are sent to the print device that is least busy. So if you have multiple printers, you can load balance the print jobs between those printers. Somebody's printing a huge 400-page manual, and somebody else just wants to print a copy of an email. It just automatically knows that, okay, this guy's busy printing 400 pages, so we'll send the print jobs over to number 2 for a little while until it's done. You can set the priority, so printers can be assigned different priorities. So the jobs sent to the higher priority printer are sent to the print device first. So you can have priorities on those print jobs. You can configure 2012 R2 system as a print server. You need to first to share a printer. So the sharing tab in printer's property dialog box is where you're going to do that, where you can share the printer. You can set what the name of the printer is, so you can give it a more meaningful name like Printer 1 Second Floor Accounting or something like that. Render print jobs on client computers. List in the directory. Add additional drivers for different operating systems, for example. If somebody's going to connect to it from a Windows 7 workstation. Maybe you want to have the printer available for them as well. The Advanced tab on the Printer Services Properties dialog box provides more options for controlling the printer. So from there, you can check when it's available or set when it's available. So have it always available or only available during certain times. You can set the priority. You can install the driver or configure the driver. The spooling options for that printer. The hold mismatched documents, print spooled documents first, keep printed documents, and so forth. So you've got a bunch of different options in here. I don't want to waste too much time going through all of these. Separator page is good if you've got, a lot of people sending documents. Then it puts a separator page so everybody knows which document belongs to whom. You don't have to go through and sift through to figure out where your print job ends and someone else begins. So there's the printer dialog, or the properties dialog, rather. With the printer permissions, access to printers can be controlled just like folders and files and file sharing. But there's no permission inheritance for printers. So there's three standard permissions. You can print, manage the printer, and manage documents. There are also 6 special permissions. So managing print documents, so you can take the following actions on a document. You can pause a print job. You can resume it if you've paused it. You can restart it. You can cancel it if you no longer want to print, and you can check the properties on the printer. So you can also use the PowerShell to manage the printer. So from the PowerShell, you can show the print jobs. Those are the jobs that are in the queue. You can suspend the print job if for some reason you need to suspend it. You can resume it if you need to. You can restart print jobs, and of course you can remove a print job if you want to just cancel it. Once again, we're seeing these PowerShell commands because you may have in say a remote office, you might have only server core installed, and you might need to do something like this from the command line in PowerShell rather than using the GUI. Although, as we talked about before, you could also use the GUI if you just connect to it from another server. So some common printing problems. Print jobs get stuck in the print queue. You could just cancel or restart the print job. That's the most common solution. But if that doesn't work, you can cancel the job that's trying to print and do one of the following. You can open the services control panel and restart the print spooler service, right? So there's a service, or you can use the netstop command to do that, and then the start command to start it back up, but it's the print spooler service. Sorry, it stops. So with the regular command line, it's net stop, but with the PowerShell, it's stop dash service. So again, that was the print spooling service. Some people might need to print from remote desktop. So if you're operating Windows Server 2012 as a remote desktop server, when somebody's connected to remote desktop, they may need to print on a local printer, which you can do. So that capability exists in Windows 2012. So when somebody's connected with an RDP client, it will show them their local printers in the RDP session. So if you connect with RDP into a server, and let's say you open up Microsoft Word inside RDP, a type of a Word document, when you go to print it, you would see your local printer as an option instead of having to print to a server that's connected to the RDP server. So that's a nice feature. So print management with the print and document services role. So the print and document services role is not necessary to create printer shares and manage the server printer, but it provides options for managing a print server and additional ways to share printers. So to install that, you have to install the role services, just like anything else we've talked about. So you'll need distributed scan server, LPD service, and internet printing. And after the print and document service role is installed, the print management console is available from the tools menu in the server manager, which we've looked at previously in week 2. We looked at that. So using the print manager, you can view the status information and manage your printers. You can and manage all of your printers and print servers on the network. So you can install a new printer, you can share a printer, migrate printers, deploy printers with group policy, for example. So when someone logs in, they're automatically deployed to their computer. We'll talk more about group policy in the next unit, though, so you'll get a little bit better feel for how that works. You can list and remove printers from Active Directory. You can display printers based on some kind of filter. And finally, we have branch office printing. Basically, branch office printing is, let's say you've got users at a remote office that need to be able to print. You don't want them to have to send those jobs to a server out at the main office and only to have them come back and print at the branch office. You want them to be able to directly connect, and branch office printing allows you to do that. So it's not, you don't have this circuitous route of these print jobs going from the branch office to the main office and then back to a physical printer at their own office. Instead, it can bypass that process and go directly to a local printer. So you can enable this in the print management console or using commandlets in the PowerShell, which we've looked at before. So a quick summary of what we talked about in this unit. We looked at file and print sharing functions. We talked about permissions, so types of permissions to restrict access to files, either with share or NTFS. We talked about 3 types of objects, which were users, groups, and computers. We talked about how permissions are assigned in 4 ways. We talked about the discretionary access control list and different ways to apply permissions. We talked about the file server role, which is required to share folders. We talked about using the special considerations with deny permission when it's appropriate to use it, and how that can get overridden by allow permissions. We talked about client computers accessing shared folders. They could use the UNC path. They could use Active Directory search. They can map a drive letter. They can browse using Windows Explorer. We talked about setting up disk quotas to limit how much data someone can store. We talked about how shout-out copies work and how those are managed. We did talk a little bit about work folders. That was very brief, but we talked about how work folders allow offline caching of their documents folder, for example, so you can centralize the storage of their documents. Windows Server 2012, we talked about how it offers features for managing printers and making printing convenient for users, like the feature I just talked about in RDP, for example, and the branch office printing, which is a nice feature. And we talked about installing the snap-in for print management and some of the extra features that you get when you install that, but you certainly don't have to have that installed in order to share a printer on the network. So that concludes the unit on file and printer sharing. In the next unit, we're going to start talking about Active Directory and group policies, but it's going to be a brief introduction to Active Directory.